extends from the Thai border all the way to Singapore like a green spine. This is classic guerrilla country. From remote jungle strongholds, Chin Peng's men can launch shock attacks anywhere, anytime, and then melt away.
The jungle was the terrorists' first home. They knew the jungle inside out because they were involved in fighting the Japanese. They had already prepared themselves. They had food dumps, arms dumps. They were at a greater advantage in the initial stages.
In Kuala Lumpur, High Commissioner Gent struggles to control the rapidly deteriorating situation. Hampered by poor intelligence and a ragbag collection of police units and army battalions, he fights back with new draconian emergency regulations.
In a tough counter-insurgency situation environment, you need tough laws to enable the government to have some flexibility to act decisively and resolutely.
Those who are in possession of arms are liable to be sentenced to death.
The emergency regulations empowered the government to search properties, premises without warrant, to detain people without trial, and essentially to impose curfews if necessary.
But Gent's regulations have little immediate impact on the number of communist attacks. Soon he is under renewed pressure from angry British planters.
The first 5 or 6 months were quite difficult and nasty. On the communist side, it was doing these little ambushes all around the countryside, and people thought they were beginning to win the war.
Thoroughly rattled by the state of affairs in Malaya, the Labour government in London recalls Gent, officially for consultations. Unofficially, he's being sacked. As Gent's aircraft approaches London Airport, it collides with another plane and explodes. Gent is killed. Back in Malaya, the communists have the upper hand. The country is plunging into violent chaos. 1948. A war on terror ravages Malaya. High Commissioner Sir Edward Gent has been killed in an air crash. No replacement has yet been made. The security forces are in disarray. On the front line, it is the powerful British planters and mine owners who now seize the initiative. Instead of being cowed by the communist attacks, they are spoiling for a fight.
Their theory was, we kill some of the planters and all will be frightened. The planters will rush off back to UK so that the economy of Malaya will drop. But it was just the reverse. When they started attacking, mostly the British planters and the locals got together and rearmed themselves.
As the communist insurgency worsens, the planters demand reinforcements. The government in London turns to police units that have recently been withdrawn from Palestine. One of the first to arrive is Sergeant Gus Fletcher, and he hits the ground running.
They wanted 500 ex-Palestine police quickly to go. So I wrote to the Colonial Office, and in very short time I was whipped up to London, given a very quick interview, and off I go with the first plane load to Malaya. We were on the plane for 2.5 days. Finally, and thankfully, Singapore slid under our wings and we landed. And then onto the train to Kuala Lumpur. We were in action. As we arrived, we rushed out to an estate being shot up and burnt. And we picked up a dead body. We came back. Hours later, it was now 3 a.m. Before we can even get to bed, another one. We go off to a different direction, another estate.
For Gus Fletcher, it's a shocking baptism of fire, and it seems as if the communists are running rings round the government forces. But as reinforcements arrive, the planters begin recruiting a special constabulary to protect their mines and plantations, and it's an immediate success. At least 30,000 volunteers, mainly Malays, sign up. It's down to new arrivals like Gus Fletcher to ready the specials for the fight.
I'd trained the special constables to use their guns, and we only had one shotgun for every 2 men. And the ammunition, it was pre-war, 1938, 1936 even. And of course when you fired, you would get a click, it would be a dud.
Whatever the state of their ammunition, the special constables must hold the fort at plantations and mines so that the Malayan police units and army regiments can take the fight back to the communists. But even before they confront Chin Peng's fighters, they must face the Malayan jungle, the communists' closest ally.
When I first entered the jungle, I was utterly amazed. I was awestruck. Twilight and noisy of insects, monkeys and everything making a noise, thousands of mosquitoes and leeches.
The only things I disliked so much in the jungle were the leeches, and the leeches were terrible.
They are all over the place, on the ground, on the leaves. You go underneath and they drop onto your neck and crawl down, and you don't feel it at all until they puncture your skin.
I've literally had 20, 30 to 40 covering my body, mainly around the ankles and in my private parts as well. We won't go into that though.
You go into a frenzy.
The communist fighters, known as CTs, know well that their opponents will be at a chronic disadvantage.
Mana dalam hutan dunia kita bukan? Dia masuk itu, dia macam kata orang itu, busa masuk dalam kampung. Ada tak? Dia tak tahu hulu kiri. Dia kan? Dia gantung kepada itu kompas. Nak hala ke mana? Bukit mana? Sungai mana? Itulah hal lain dia tak kerti dah.
You've got to try to navigate through this, which is no landmark for you to see because you're enclosed by the jungle. And all the time you were sweating, falling over, ripping your uniform, and you come to big wide rivers. Sometimes they're not on the map. The maps are inaccurate. And consequently you end up lost.
For young British National Service recruits, this first exposure to jungle warfare is often traumatizing.
In the jungle country, life was very harsh. And I was leading a platoon, National Service people who were shanghaied from the schools at 18 years old. They really suffered because they were not trained in the tropics. And suddenly they're thrown into the jungle. And at night you can hear the boys crying, you know.
But the war on terror is not only fought in the jungles. For there is another communist army that stalks Malayan villages and towns. This secret army makes a vital contribution to the terrorist war machine. Chin Peng's fighters need supplies, food and information, and it all has to come from outside the jungle. So they depend on a network of hidden supporters known as the Masses Organization, or Min Yun. In everyday life, a member of the Min Yun could be a teacher or waiter, a government worker or office clerk. But for their communist masters, they must act as couriers, spies and saboteurs.
The Min Yun is very important. They are the silent group who were the eyes, ears of the communists. They give information of any of the government rules, police raids and so on. They were the very powerful army, people's army.
They have another task too. Every month, Chin Peng must pay every one of his soldiers. So the Min Yun supporters must extort as much cash as they can from villagers and estate workers. If anyone is unwilling or unable to pay these subscriptions, the communists call in the hard men from the jungle.
Chin Peng assumed that just because they didn't want to support the communists, they were immediately traitors.
哪里会敢去惹他？凶巴巴的，什么你要顺的，不听的都不可以。
佢上門問你攞女，你唔俾點樣？佢咪捉你殺頭啦！
K.L. Chai remembers his friend, a schoolteacher, who refused to cooperate and suffered a gruesome punishment.
They called him out of the classroom, broad daylight, and they murdered him right in front of all those who came to see that. They disemboweled him.